At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Carbine, it's multimedia. You can get text, translate to whatever language, getting away with the legacy equipment and going into a cloud-based solution.
It's the first time in U.S. history that we have an EZNet through cloud-native call handling.
As a police officer, to have the victim go video, that's unheard of.
You're getting upgrades every month, not every year.
To schedule your free Carbine demo, please visit carbine.com/WTT.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Carbine, and a big shout out to patrons as always. And right now, I am currently recording live. We're live here at the 2022 Indiana Professionals 911 Professionals Conference, and it has been an amazing time here. And just right off the bat, I'm going to introduce my guest. My guest today is Veronica, and she's a supervisor at Johnson County right here out of Indiana. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing good. It's a little warm in here, right?
It is a little warm.
Yeah. Yesterday, though.
It was freezing.
Oh, what? In here? You felt like it was in here?
Well, I didn't come in here yesterday, but
okay. Yes, the other rooms. Yes, yeah, it was super cold when we were setting up in here. It was hot enough that all of this was sweating. I was just sweating. It was down my back and everything. I was like, holy hell! And someone walks by and they said, "We already told them to turn it up. We're hot too."
Nice.
Yeah. So it was interesting because after we were done here, Rob and I ended up packing up and going over to the room to do Imagine Listening and stuff. And as soon as we walked out, it was just instant icebox. I was like, oh, that is so good. It is so good.
It always feels great when you walk into the cold air like that.
Right? Yeah, yeah. So is this your first time at this conference specifically, or it is? Mm-hmm. Oh, awesome. What have you thought so far? There's been a lot of sessions, a lot of different things going on.
I listened to Rob talk. Mm-hmm. I listened to his class. I listened to another class. The gentleman was from New Hampshire, mm-hmm. and one from the guy who worked 9/11. There's just been a lot of really good ones.
Yeah.
A lot that's made me think about what I want to do when I go back. Yes,
no, that's good. That's probably one of the best things when you come to these conferences, because of course there's a lot of great sessions, but also the networking. Sometimes the networking alone, you end up going back with also people that or that you'll have friendships with for a long time. Especially because you're learning from other people too. Mm-hmm. You find out that it's not just your center, that's going through certain things.
Yeah. And I've worked at a few different centers throughout Indiana. So when we come to these kind of trainings and conferences and stuff like this, Heath and Travis are always like, man, we just can't take you anywhere. Everybody. And I'm like, I can't help it.
Yeah.
I just have worked a few places.
That's a good thing. That is a very good thing, Heath and Travis. So let's talk about that. As you're talking about different places that you've gone to for trainings and such, how did you get into public safety to begin with?
So to get into public safety, I met my fiance. Typical dispatcher story. He was a police officer.
Yeah.
I was not a dispatcher, however. We worked at the airport. He was an airport police officer, and I was a public safety officer. I was one of the horrible people that stood out on the curbs telling people to move their cars.
Oh, oh, you are one of the, okay.
And we left there and we moved to Georgia. And I didn't know what to do. I was young. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And he's like, I think you would be a really good dispatcher. You should apply. So I put in applications in a few places, and one of them hired me, and that's the rest is history.
Oh, man. And so you've been doing this for about 15 years now, right? Something like that?
Since 2006-ish, yeah.
So then when you got into this, did you happen to have a chance to do like a sit along or anything, like go into dispatch and kind of see, what it was all about beforehand?
I did. So when I started dispatching, I was in Georgia, like I said, right outside of Atlanta in Gwinnett County. The dispatch center was in a town called Lawrenceville. And their training was just amazing, like amazing. It was more like a dispatch academy, lasted for months before we even saw the floor, like on our own or with our trainers or anything. But we did. Part of it was going to sit in the room and listen to calls and listen to the radios. And so, yeah.
So did it, when you were listening and everything, did it kind of get in your blood already right there? Were you were all about it?
Yep.
See,
yes.
That's what I love to do. I was kind of the same way, when I got in originally, I didn't know what to expect. But and even after the very first call on the first night, my first shift, which I was freaking out about, I observed my trainer take a call, and then he told me that I was next, and I thought he's got to be joking, but he wasn't,
Yeah.
and I went into it, but immediately it was just like that I thought, this is it. Like, this is going to be good.
This is me.
Yeah. So then what was training like for you then?
So there it was a lot there, because like I said, it was like a whole academy. Like it lasted for months, and there were days that they still used 10 codes and signal codes and stuff there. And those on their own were a lot. And trying to learn, like, get your radio ear and understand radio traffic, because everything can sound different.
Right.
Every time you listen to it. If you know what they said, you're going to hear what they said, right? But if you don't understand it the first time, it's hard. So, yeah, that was a lot. Learning where all the fire stations were. It wasn't a small county. Yeah, they really did lay a good foundation for the rest of my training and the rest of my career.
See, that's pretty awesome too, because and you're right, you have to develop that dispatcher ear and everything if you've never listened to any traffic like that before. And for me, I spent 3.5 years in the police department that I started at in Central Florida. I went back home to Southwest Michigan and finished off my dispatch career there in the county that I grew up in. But there was another county that I was trying to get into at the same time. And one of the things, and I kind of felt bad for other people that were there who might not have had any of that training, because the very first test, they had about 30 or 35 of us in a big room, kind of like this, where the acoustics aren't that great. And, it's very echoey, and I'm not sure if that's a word, echoey, but anyway, over the speaker system that they had, they played radio traffic. So what they wanted us to do, everyone had a piece of paper and a pen, and they wanted us to write down what they thought the officer was talking to the dispatcher about. And going off of that, they narrowed it down to about 10 people.
Wow.
And luckily, like I said, I had that 3.5 years already. I had already developed that dispatcher ear, but it took me a little bit in the very beginning, because it sounded like everyone was just eating their mic.
Yes.
Yes. And I was like, I don't understand.
Some of them still do.
Right.
So,
Yes.
Even now, we're like, oh my gosh, just take your mic away a little bit so we can understand and not make you have to repeat 5 million times.
Yes, exactly. Or have to click us that we don't really like.
No, I will click you back.
Yeah, see, there you go. Very nice. So then, you're going through that time. You said the training program was extensive, but it was also a great one as well.
Yes.
And you developed your ear and everything else. Do you remember some of those earlier calls there at that first agency at all?
There are just like a couple
Mhm.
that stick out. So one of our more common EMS fire calls are lift assists. So on this particular lift assist call, I didn't ask if the husband was conscious or breathing, and they got there and he was deceased. And from then on, I've never not asked. I don't care if they say they're not hurt, they're okay, they just need help getting up. No, I need to know that they're awake
Right.
and breathing.
Yes.
And then the very last call that I took at that center was from my fiance, which how he got me on the phone in the first place is amazing because it's not a small center. There are multiple people answering the phone, but we were getting ready to move back to Indiana, and I had the only car and our phone had been shut off at home. So I was using a neighbor's phone that he could only call 911 from.
Mhm.
And got me, and yeah, I was done after that because he called me to tell me that our dog was dying and I needed to come home so he could take him to the vet. And
Wow.
yeah.
What are the odds? So I'm a firm believer that there are some phone calls that are meant for us. Like there's something either something with us in relation to their call, whether it be basically something that we've dealt with in our own lives, our
Yes.
experience or something like that. As an example, when my grandmother passed away, I was one who took that call. And I was thinking the same thing, like, what are the odds that I would be the one to take that call? But then, here you are as well. And you're the one who ends up getting the call from your fiance. Like it was meant for you. That's all I could
crazy,
say.
Yeah. But I couldn't go back after that. I was like, no, there's no way. I mean, I had already put in my notice. It wasn't like I just got up and walked away. Like I was leaving already anyways. But after that, I was done. I couldn't. I was like, I can't. I've already heard him on the phone now, and I can't. Yeah.
Wow. So then you, after that call, you end up, not going back. But is it around that time that you were leaving, that you were moving here to the state, to Indiana?
Yeah, we were moving back to Indiana because I'm originally from here, but we had moved down there. We were moving back. I already had a job lined up here at IFD.
Mm-hmm.
So I went there and went through training and was there for a little bit. And from there, I went to Monroe County and worked with Jeff Schimmer.
Yeah.
And then from Monroe County, I went to Hendricks County because it was close to home. For Monroe County, I drove like an hour each way.
Oh, jeez.
Because I lived in Hendricks County. So when I got when I got that, it was like 10-minute drive. And I'm like, yeah, that's and then I came here to Johnson County.
Nice. So then
I've been around the state a little bit.
So then you get to Johnson County and all, and then what do you remember some of those earlier calls there at Johnson then? And I guess also what was kind of the difference between some of these centers? Like Georgia sounds like it was a lot bigger, but also depending on the area in Indiana or really any state for that matter, wherever you're in, it could be bigger than what it was in Georgia as well, or the amount of people who are on the floor or the area that you cover. What were some of the differences?
I have not worked in a center in Indiana that was anywhere near as big as the one in Georgia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was so busy all the time because you had multiple interstates running through the county. But the biggest difference, I guess, going from starting here, I was just doing fire, which ended up not really. I mean, I didn't dislike it. Yeah. But I needed the adrenaline of the police side because that was my that was my passion. I loved that side of it. Yeah. So just going from IFD to where you have all of these apparatus, no volunteer stuff, to going to a county like Monroe where you've got like Bloomington at the time and a whole bunch of volunteers. So like that was different, or reserve officers and stuff like that. So
Wow.
just the size and like the busyness and volunteers and reserves, every place is different. And then the way that everybody has their SOPs and the way they do things, it's a learning curve every time.
Yeah, no, definitely. You have to learn how everybody works, and different personalities, in the center as well. And then you just kind of fit in. You start meshing in and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, even in that beginning, when you're still trying to figure everything out with folks, when the shit hits the fan, like everyone is working,
Seamlessly.
well-oiled machine. Yeah,
Yes.
It's just going and going. And I those are the moments that I miss from dispatch. I've been out of dispatch for 9 years now, but those are the ones that I miss where, something could be going on or nothing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're just plugging away, just kicking ass and taking names. And then when you're done, you get that, we did that.
Yeah.
Like we
and
just
you're
did
like,
that.
You guys were awesome.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably one of the best feelings. I love that.
For sure.
What are some of the calls that stick with you? Like there are 3 calls that we're going to be talking about here in a moment, but other than those calls, and of course, if you feel comfortable talking about it as well, what are some of those calls that kind of stick with you?
One of the calls from Johnson County that sticks with me is we got a call of like a drive-by shooting in an apartment complex, and I ended up being the one that got this woman on the phone, hysterical, and she said that she thought it was her son that had been shot. But she was still inside, so she didn't know. And during the course of the call, she walked outside and did see that it was him, and I won't ever forget the scream that I heard come from her. It's just
That's one of the hard parts, right? One of the hardest parts about this profession is that there are certain things that stick with you. For one, like the scream, and there could be a trigger, there could be a movie that you watch or a show or something where the scream sounds similar.
Yes.
And like there are seriously some episodes of Law and Order SVU that when they start playing some audio or they're discussing certain storylines or dialogue that's in the storyline, I flash back sometimes to some of the calls that I took, and there have been a couple where I've walked out of the room for just a moment, and then there's a commercial break, and then I come back. I'm like, oh man, I didn't think that affected me like that.
Yeah, or like driving by someplace that where something happened, or
you could be driving home, passing that complex or something, not thinking about it, and then noticing, and then it hits you.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. One of the other ones that I have from Johnson County wasn't like in the beginning. It was pretty recent, actually. And I have to give a shout out to my assistant supervisor, Liza, because we worked with Bargersville Fire to get a woman to the hospital for a transplant. She was coming from Brown County and only had an hour to get to downtown Indianapolis. And it was storming and rainy and traffic. So Brown County transferred her to us because they called while they were driving. But Brown County, they were too far north for Brown County to be able to do anything. They were going to be in our county. So Liza and I worked with the sheriff's department and the fire department to try and get some sort of ride for her there so that she made it in time. So we ended up, it was storming, so everybody was busy. Our Bargersville medic got off of the run that they were on, so I just marked them out and said, hey, go back to your station. This is what we're going to do. And they got her there within, she had seconds. She was going up the elevator in the hospital, and they called her asking her where she was at. And she got her transplant. So that was really cool.
See,
so it's not all doom and gloom.
Right. Yeah. No, there's also saves like that. And you all definitely deserve the credit to do, because who else would be there to be able to put that all together?
Yeah.
And because of all of your hard work, and getting everything coordinated, connecting. She got there.
Yeah.
Just barely. She got there. That's the point. And
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And it was really cool today because they talked about it in the keynote this morning.
That's awesome.
But afterwards, a girl from another county came up to me and told me about how when they read about it, when it happened, her and her mom were just crying, bawling, because her mom needed transplants and that could have been her. And they were just so happy that somebody in my heart, like, it just, to hear somebody say that it's something that I did affected them like that.
Right.
That's the first time that's happened in 15 years, and it was pretty amazing.
I can feel it from you right now. Like, you got me in the feels. Like, that
was pretty amazing.
Right. Yeah. Because you don't ever get to hear stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
You don't ever get to hear a lot of those things. Sometimes, you get the honor to be able to be connected with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't always happen. So to be able to hear it is just a good feeling.
Yes.
Damn. Well done.
It was an amazing feeling. I'm so glad that she came up and talked to me.
And also there's a lot of people that I've talked to who have said, you will never know the impact of everything that you do, or the ripple effect of that impact, how it affects people. But
for sure, that's the first ripple that I've got, and I loved it. Loved it.
That is amazing. That is so good. Now, there was a span. So we're about to get into this part here. There's a span of how much time was this now? Like,
I think it was about 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
8 weeks. I had a lot of really bad incidents that I was there for.
Yes. So okay, we're gonna get through this. We're gonna kind of dissect them a little bit, but also kind of talk about how you've been from that time and how things have transpired in regards to like mental health and wellness. How has the center worked with that? Because there's a lot of places out there where there's a lot of folks like us taking these types of calls, and they don't have anyone to turn to, right?
Sure.
And sharing stories like this is so good, because folks that don't have the resources or don't have the people to turn to, they can listen to these stories and, one, know that they're not alone, and two, know that they can reach out to the greater population of this thin gold line. So again, thank you for coming on and for being open and sharing these stories and everything. And so the first one that we're going to touch on, and again, you said there's about 7 or 8 weeks that you were taking all of these calls. There's 3 that we're going to focus on here. And this first one, it has to do with some drownings. So kind of walk us through this. What exactly happened?
So when we first started getting calls, it was a very busy night. And it was in Greenwood. And so it's generally busier there anyways. They stay pretty busy. So when we first started getting calls, it was just some kids playing around a retention pond. Nothing super emergent that would take precedent over another emergent call, right? Just a normal kids are playing around the pond kind of call. I had actually gotten up and went to the restroom, and all of a sudden I start getting texts when I'm in the restroom, like, is IFD dive-in route, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what is happening? So I get back out there, and we had gotten calls that the kids had gone into the pond. So we have all kinds of apparatus at this point going, officers, and just, it was so much, like, quickly, because it didn't start out like that. Like, when you get those kind of calls at first, and it's, oh my gosh, somebody's drowning, or, and it's that right from the start, you're kind of ready for what you need to do, right?
Right.
And, but it didn't. So we got all of the people going, and unfortunately it didn't end the way that we wanted it to end. And a couple kids did pass away. But yeah, that just kind of kicked everything off. And from there, it was just kind of a whirlwind of 8 weeks.
So with a call like that, so actually, first of all, There at the county center that you work at, how many people are on the floor at a time?
Anywhere between 5 and 7.
Okay, 5 and 7, and for whatever reason, you seem to be the one who is taking the brunt of all of these calls, along with everyone else. Yeah,
There were a few of us that were pulling a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
But yes, it was to the point I was getting you again messages when
Right.
things would happen. Yeah.
So
So
then-
I was there.
yeah. So then let's for this one specifically, you go through it, and it's not one thing. For those who are watching and listening right now, it's not one thing to just take that call, but after that call, you don't really get a chance to stop. You
No.
go to the next call, but in the back of your mind, while you're still dealing with the one call, whatever call you're on at that time, you're also thinking about their rescue, or in this case, search or recovery, or whichever, how
Yeah.
it was going. That is on your mind as well.
Yes.
There's so much that's going on with all of it, and it's almost like we've got several. I like to think of it that dispatchers and call takers, we are using more percentages of our brain than others, because there are so many things going on, so many things that we have to pay attention to, so many other thoughts, so
Yes.
many voices, like all of it.
Mhm.
That's just the way it works for dispatch. So how about that part? Before you find out, and even after you find out, then there's notifications. There's stuff for you all, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it's the officers out there who are probably do the notifications, but you're also helping them find that
Right.
information.
So on that call in particular, the families were out there already. So we didn't really have to do many notifications, but later in the evening, we did have to send officers back over to the house because the family never showed up at the hospital. But they're not from here, so I don't think that they understood.
Right.
Because there was one girl, I believe, at the time that they thought she had made it. Like, she made it enough to transport her to the hospital.
Mhm.
And I just don't think they knew what to do. So as far as notifications and stuff, that was it on that one. But yeah, still having to do other calls and dealing with all of the other calls that are coming in and runs and dispatching those and making sure we have stations covered and stuff like that. So it's not ever just one thing. And I can do that flawlessly at work. I can multitask at work like nothing. But when I am out of work, don't ask me. Because it's like I just shut it off.
Right.
And I can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. And and it's a hard thing, not just a drowning alone, but when it has to do with children as well, that makes it that much more hard.
Yeah.
And
Kid calls are always
there's-
bad.
Yes, you have to go through so much more and everything. So was there any like debriefing or anything that you were involved in, or how did that go down?
Not for that call, there wasn't. I mean, we all kind of with each other that were working that night. We just check in with each other throughout the night, the rest of the night, and
That is good.
make sure that we're all good and stuff like that. But yeah, that one we did not have. We probably could have.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for us, that's the bad side of it too. Sometimes, like,
Right.
we kind of just compartmentalize things, and we're okay with some things that we should probably not be okay with.
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of places that don't have dispatch come into those debriefings, which, my center, the last center that I was at, it was kind of like that for a long time. They didn't have us come in. People would say, "Oh, you guys weren't really out there." Like, we're the ones who took the call.
Exactly.
There's a part of this story that you don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember the first debriefing that I went to, we were telling our side. Everybody got a chance, and when it got to us, everyone was sitting there like with their eyes popped out. And I remember someone, I don't remember who said it, but someone out of nowhere said, why haven't you all been here before? Like, this is a side that we've never known.
Exactly.
And some of the more, I'll just say, seasoned people out in the field
sure.
just kind of looked at each other like,
Wow,
oops,
we've been ignoring
yeah,
them
exactly.
this whole time.
Right.
Yeah. The other 2 calls, we were very, very much welcomed and involved in the briefings, and
That's good.
I just don't think that they really had one for that call. Unfortunately, I mean,
right. Yeah. And some of them they don't.
Yeah.
Some of them they don't at all. But what was good is what you said, was the fact that all of you were checking in on each other, and that's probably one of the best things, because for a long time, at least for myself, early on, 2001 going on, it seemed a little bit taboo, to be able to talk.
You
and
have
share certain
feelings?
things.
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Nobody wanted to look weak or anything, but
Yes.
we eventually started doing the same thing. We were talking, checking in on each other, and things got a lot better. Even morale went up because we were all actually talking to each other. So that's a good thing to hear. Now, there was another incident that you dealt with, and this was a few months ago, right? I mean, it wasn't too long ago. This was at a mall. It was a mall shooting and all. Kind of take us through this.
Yeah, that was pretty recent, actually. And we had just had shift change. Like, if this had happened, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes sooner, it would have been a complete mess, I think. Because we were changing out and people weren't logged in. Like, we were logging out and logging in, and it would have been a complete mess. But we had all just got sat down. We were all just kind of, doing our start of the shift, joking with each other, talking, answering calls. And then all of a sudden, our phone screens, they lit up like I have never seen before, ever. And we're like, oh God, we thought it was going to be a wreck. Never in our wildest dreams did we think that it was going to be an active shooter at the mall. So we start getting calls, like our phone screen, every single line was lit up. They were rolling over to non-emergency lines. They were rolling over to backup phones to other counties. It was just so much. And even the calls that we were getting, not everybody knew what was going on. Everybody knew that somebody was shooting. Some people thought that there were 2 people shooting. Some people thought that they were running towards an exit. So literally everybody had a different perspective of what they were seeing and what was going on. So just trying to get all of that information. And I mean, we had people started quickly, but trying to get all that information and deciphering what's what and what's really happening and telling them where to go. And I was on the fire console that night, thank goodness, because which I would hardly ever say because I love the police side,
right?
But fire knows incident command very well, so it was very smooth on the fire side. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was still a lot to do, starting people, station coverage, stuff like that. But yeah, it was a lot, and it's a call that I hope I never have to have again.
See, and so for those who are watching and listening, this was this active shooter incident that happened at this mall, but there was also, a bystander that was there that was armed who ended up taking out the shooter, and obviously, would have ended up saving. It did end up saving,
if he had
whoever
not,
knows how many lives that could have been,
because it was packed. I mean, it was. Well, we changed shifts at 5:30, so I mean, it's everybody going after work, going to the mall. I mean, it was busy,
right?
So that's also why we got that there were 2 shooters.
Yeah,
but we didn't know that. Even when we started, by the time we started getting calls, it was over. But nobody knew that. Really? Because they, I mean, to hear the after when they were talking about him the bystander shooting the gunman, they said it was like 16 seconds or something like that. Yeah, some crazy little amount of time. Like
Right.
the thought of him to be able to react the way he did was insane.
Wow.
But nobody knew when they were calling that it was over. They just knew that there were 2 people shooting in the food court.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
so-
I can just imagine, the type of chaos that's going on, not just there, but also, in that room with all of you. Because like you said, you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then everyone else who's going there, they're probably also thinking, what more information can they get for us? And you all are in there getting as much as you can, much as you can,
sure.
and just not really knowing fully.
And then, like I was talking about with the drownings, we were still taking other calls too, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
911 doesn't stop.
I was working overtime that night. That's why I was there. And the supervisor on the shift got a call and said that his daughter had been shot. She was at the mall, and they took off running when the shooting started and got home and didn't realize until they got home that she was hurt. So now we have the scene at the mall and this person that's still from the mall, involved at the mall, at another house. Thankfully, she was not actually, she was shot, but not, it was more of a graze than like she was actually really hurt.
Yeah.
She was in pain.
Right.
I'm sure.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But she was lucky.
Wow.
So yeah, it was intense for a long time that night.
So then after everything is over, people are out there, it's not really over because there's still other stuff going on, right? There's other things to process. So what is that like then, for all of you in there as this is, now in the aftermath stages?
Well, it didn't really go to aftermath for us until middle of the night sometime. It was like a all day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because after they finished at the mall and clearing the mall and making sure there was nothing else going on there and everybody was out and safe and whatnot, they went to the suspect's apartment to see what they could. So it was a whole other, SWAT call
Wow.
to go to his apartment to make sure that everything was okay there and that there wasn't anything else. So once everything was done, we just kind of sat back and we're like,
right.
like
listening to you, I don't know if I've been breathing as I'm listening to you.
We could finally breathe because all of our people were safe. Everything was okay, as okay could be. But that was when we could finally be like, talk to we couldn't even really talk to each other. There was so much going on. But yeah.
Wow.
Close to the end of the shift, we could just finally take a break, take a breather, and be like, wow, like that really just happened.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it happens just like that.
Yeah.
And other times it happens like that, but you're still processing and aftermath and things are still going just like this. And it's proud of all of you. Like, well done.
Thank you.
It was a good job.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was definitely, we couldn't have asked for any better, honestly. The way that they had problems outside with what they had going on, but as far as us in the room, the team that was together that night was just flawless, absolutely flawless. And I couldn't have asked to be with anything better.
Amazing.
Yeah, I was to sit back and think of it, it really was amazing.
Right.
It
could have gone completely different.
It could have.
Yeah.
Like I said, if it had been 10 minutes earlier, it probably would have been a lot different. It would have taken us a few minutes to get our footing, right?
Right. Yeah.
And get everything. But no, thankfully we were all already logged in and switched over and
damn.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, this last call before we get into the wrap up of this episode, which has been amazing to have you on here and talk to you about all of this. There was a call that had come in where an officer had said something specifically, and I wanted you to kind of take us through that call. The following audio is from the incident that Veronica will explain here momentarily. And a warning is this audio might not be suitable for all audiences.
It's Rolling 03 West Track. It's Rolling 03.
803, go ahead.
Yeah. 3. I'm entrapped. That's it for me at 1060. 300 west. Shift 300 south.
300 south and where?
300 south. 300 south to Tees. All the way down. I'm not sure the current location. The vehicle took off from me. It's 300 south, westbound to Tees. I'm trapped. It's not good.
300 south, where at Tees?
56 is around from Franklin.
56.
Control to my family level.
300 south of the Tees. 803, keep talking fast.
It's not good.
Dustin, you keep talking.
Control, start lifeline.
Clear on lifeline. 803, we've got him coming. Just stay with us. County units, we're not sure if he's at 600 west or Mox Ferry.
Control, 300 south, all the way until Tees. I don't know.
East or west on 300 south?
It is west from 135.
Clear. We've got him coming right to you.
Are you west of the funeral home and west of 135? All the way until the road ends. We're coming to you, buddy.
803, we have everybody coming. Just keep talking to us. Supervisor 803, we have everyone in route. Keep talking. Supervisor 803. Supervisor 803, keep talking to us. 803, one route, keep talking to us.
Start extrication. There's a suspect. I don't know where he's at. He's somewhere around here in a truck.
Clear on a suspect. Extrication.
So please contact my family. Tell them I love them.
803, we are getting them to you.
Okay, so it was the middle of the night. We had a few couple calls going on. I don't even remember what those calls were. And actually, let me start by saying earlier in the night, we had a county guy get into a wreck. Now, we all know when officers hit those little orange buttons on their radios, how those make us feel.
Right, yes.
And 99% of the time, they are accidental pushes.
Yeah.
So one of the alarms goes off. And we're like, oh gosh, here we go. Somebody's hit their button again.
Right.
So the dispatcher that was on county hit him up and he said, Control, I've been in a wreck. And so this like is at the beginning-ish of our shift. And he said that. He gave us part of where he was. He said he was at such and such road in the interstate. And then he wouldn't say anything else. So we weren't sure what was happening with him. And then we got a call and they were like, I'm with your deputy. He's in his car. He's down this embankment. He's unconscious. So we're like, great, just freaking out because it's one of our guys,
Right. Yeah.
So we get him all taken care of. He was hurt, but not badly.
Yeah.
Got him they got him transported, made all of our notifications, stuff like that. Went on with our shift. So it's the middle of the night. And we're, like I said, we had a few little things going on. And then out of nowhere, we get another emergency button. And he was very faint and hard to understand at first. But he had pursued a vehicle and wasn't able to get out on the radio. And when he pursued the vehicle, he wrecked into an embankment. He said when we finally, it took a little bit to figure out where he was at because he didn't know. Mm-hmm. So we're talking to him and he's like, Control, it's bad. I don't know that I'm going to make it. Please tell my family I love them. So at this point, because I wasn't even on, I'm listening. I'm the supervisor, so I'm not actually on a channel. But he said that, and as soon as he said that, I got on the radio and I was like, no, you're going to tell him that yourself. Keep talking to us. Stay awake. Tell us. I don't care what you tell us. Tell us anything, just keep talking to us.
Right.
Until I said, help is coming. Everybody, the whole cavalry is coming. Just stay awake. And he did. He stayed awake until we got them there. And we got helicopter and, all of that. And 2 emergency buttons in one night that were actually real that the effect that has now when one of them goes off, you better answer me right now.
Right. Yeah. No. Oh God. I can't.
But that officer, he made it. So, I mean, he's awesome. Still recovering and I hope he makes a full recovery. But yeah, it was pretty crazy.
It sounds like it, definitely, but also for you as well to take that initiative and keep on the radio to let him know, no, you're gonna be the one to say it. Just keep staying with us. And again, I'm damn proud of you and just everybody that you work with. That is amazing. This is so good.
I was so proud of my team that night. And we're all doing our thing. And again, we couldn't really process any of it. I mean, and then shift change came, right? And we're still finishing things up. And so then day shift takes it over. But through all of that, the sheriff had made sure that he sent the CIT team into dispatch because he knew. I mean, I had to call him for both calls. So he knew that we had a rough night and he made sure that he sent them. And also before I left, the first officer that was in the wreck, the deputy, he's part of the CIT team, called. And that's when I just broke.
Oh, wow.
Because to hear his voice, he's like, V, because that's what everybody calls me. They don't say Veronica, they just call me V. He's like, V, I just wanted to check and see how you guys are doing. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah, right. How are you doing?
That's what I said. I said, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm home. And I was like, wait, you're home? Because they thought he was injured badly. Like they thought he had broken hips, stuff like that, when they were getting ready to transport. So they thought it was worse. But he's like, no, nothing's broken. I'm home. I'm real sore. I'm going to be off for a little bit. But I wanted to make sure that you're okay. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me right now. Hang up this phone and go to bed. Like, go rest, because, like, thank you for checking on us. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I got to hear his voice before I left. Like, that really just kind of made the day better, even though what had happened right before that.
Right.
Like, we didn't really get, there was no closure to be had on that one before we left or anything like that. But we did on the mall shooting, and that we did get to go to the debriefing for the accident. I went. For the mall shooting, I did not go to that one. Some of the dispatchers did. But like I said, I had been working a lot of overtime, and that was my only day off. So I was like, I want to, but I also want to be home.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I did go to the officer one, and it was so amazing to hear what was happening when everybody got there, and what they were seeing compared to what we knew.
Yes.
And also his wife was there at the debriefing, the officer's wife. So to hear her like talk about their family and their kids and how grateful she is, and it was just amazing. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was mad at him. And I told her that. I said, I don't know why he would do something like this and not tell us.
Right.
And she said, no, he did. He tried. And there was a dead zone, and he couldn't get out on the radio. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, great. Now I feel like crap, first of all.
Right. But still,
yeah.
You ended up finding out, even if you felt like that, it was good that you
and she didn't say that it was bad. Like, she's like valid. She's like, yeah, I would be mad too, because he knows what he's supposed to do.
Right.
So, but yeah.
Wow.
It was a rough, about 8 weeks for me.
8 weeks. Sheesh.
There were a lot of calls.
Thank you for coming on and sharing this story. And as we go into the wrap up of this episode, I have one last question for you.
Okay.
And it's if you could go back in time with the knowledge that you have now to talk to yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, goodness. Don't let the job make you not care. Always make sure that you're going the extra mile to help people. Don't let that go. Always make sure that you're doing the best for everybody that you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. This has been excellent to hear your story and learn more about you. And I'm gonna be right back here with you to talk off air, of course. But again, thank you very, very much for being here and sharing these stories. I have no doubt that this is going to help others, but also just kind of give that perspective side, that everybody needs from dispatch. So for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Carbine. Shout out to patrons as always. Thank you all very much. If you want to become a patron and help support us, you can check us out. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. And a shout out to the Indiana 911 Professionals Conference for having us back here. It is awesome to be back. It has been excellent. And make sure to check out the conference and all the content that we have coming up as well. And this can be seen on YouTube, Facebook, as well as Twitter. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.